In this lesson, we will be talking about another distributed service, specifically distributed shared memory. Now, recall that in a previous lesson on memory management, we made a visual analogy between the memory contents of a process and the parts used by workers sharing a single workspace. Building off of that analogy, managing distributed shared memory is like managing the toy parts or even the tools across all the workspaces in a toy shop. As you can see from this image, it is very similar to the one that we used for the distributed file systems because we want to illustrate that there are multiple distributed nodes that are working together towards providing a service. The service that's provided is the sharing of the tools and the toy parts among workers that are working on multiple such workbenches. So imagine even in a single location like this, there will be multiple such workbenches with multiple workers using certain toys and toy parts and tools, and this is what we want to facilitate, the sharing of those tools and parts. For the management of tools and toy parts in a toy shop, there are three major decisions that must be made. The first one is how are we going to place all these resources in the distributed environment? Next, we must decide how and when to move tools around the different shops or the different workbenches in those shops. And finally, we must establish some rules how those toy parts and tools will be shared. For instance, regarding placement, we would probably decide to place those resources close to the workers that are currently needing them to perform their task. When a worker on one workbench is done with a particular resource and another worker on another workbench or potentially even in another location needs that resource, we should move it as soon as possible. And finally, we must have policies on how long can a worker keep a tool on their desk, or when and how workers should let others know that a tool or a toy part is ready and is available for use by others. Or for instance, when should the tools or the toy parts be placed into a storage facility that others can access as well. For managing distributed shared memory, we must make similar types of decisions. However, clearly the details are going to be very different. For instance, when deciding placement, we should typically try to place the contents of memory or the contents of a page in a physical memory that's close to a particular process. This would be the process that either created that content or will be using that content. When a process needs access to memory that's stored in a page frame on a remote node, we should come up with some policy how to migrate that content to the local node. For instance, we can copy that content, that memory page, from the remote to the local physical memory. Since a memory page may be concurrently accessed by multiple processes, and in addition, since we may have multiple copies of that page in different locations in the system, it's important to establish some rules how the different operations on that page are ordered, how they're propagated across the different copies, so that there is a consistent view of the entire memory.